Godzilla is getting too powerful, too fast. And the heroes of the Marvel Universe, they're cooked. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. But no, seriously, in issue 2 of Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe, things get ridiculously out of hand. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so coming back, the first thing we do is jump forward to the year 2099 in this universe, where now the team is comprised of Forge, Riri Williams, Tony Stark, and the Human Torch. As a result of what we saw in issue 1, when Reed, Sue, and Ben fell into Reed's portal during the initial fight with Godzilla, which sent them all to the negative zone, along with the upper third portion of the Baxter building. And I'm pretty sure Captain America and Quicksilver went along for the ride too. And like we saw, T'Challa was able to get out of there with Mo-Man's staff and make his way to Wakanda. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. But at this time in New York City, in what's now called the Exclusion Zone, the Fantastic Four of the future, who are getting ready to be attacked by Godzilla again, prepare to launch a beacon, which is like their final hope and said to be their solution for fixing the world. So right here, Johnny asks the others if they'll be able to launch before they're attacked, only for Forge to be like, this is not the moment to rush final calculations. So Johnny tells them very well, just before making his way out to face Godzilla, so that he can buy them some time, because it's important that this payload gets where it needs to go, or everything they've worked on would have been for nothing. And it's right here where Johnny goes flame on, and he races towards Godzilla, while saying, "You took my family from me decades ago, and the world never recovered," as he goes at Godzilla with this crazy flaming attack. And Johnny continues saying here, "I'm gonna fix that today. Thank you, my friends, for living up to the legacy of my family," just before he's disintegrated by Godzilla's atomic breath at point blank range. And it's like, for whatever reason, this opening of issue 2, it has me thinking of that opening scene from Days of Future Past, with us seeing the last few heroes getting wrecked as they execute their Hail Mary plan to fix everything. But it goes on to say here, the Human Torch was born long ago in cosmic fire, and on this dark day was unmade in the flames of Godzilla's rage. Godzilla destroyed the world, and the last stand of the tale of the Fantastic Four ended as it began, with a fateful launch into the unknown. And it's a wrap for Forge, Riri, and Tony, because their armor's compromised, they can't teleport out of there. And the last thing we see before this jumps back to the present day is this crazy explosion that is visible from space. And now going back to the present, the first thing we do is head over to Wakanda to pick up with T'Challa, who in the first issue we saw take the Mo-Man's staff that was built around a piece of vibranium which was infused with unstable molecules. And it's not like Mo-Man had personally fused the vibranium. That process happened over the course of tens of thousands of years. Mo-Man just happened to have turned it into a weapon. So now with T'Challa rushing it to Wakanda and bringing it to Shuri, he let her know that it agitated Godzilla and possibly weakened him, and then he tells her to synthesize as much of it as she can, because he's going to need a lot to cover the whole of his project. And T'Challa makes it clear that this takes priority over their attempts to find the Fantastic Four in the negative zone. And that's mainly because they don't have any time to spare, with Godzilla doing so much destruction so quickly. And hearing this just has Shuri like, if we can't stop Godzilla, perhaps we'd all be safer in the negative zone, because the videos from Manhattan are beyond belief. And now when we go back to the heroes who are trying to stop Godzilla, these guys are getting wrecked. And it's mainly because most of their powers or their advantages are useless here. Like for example with Spider-Man, who gets smacked by Godzilla mid-sentence. This just has him like, how does he not set off my spider sense? Which, you know, at this point I kind of feel like we've seen a lot of examples of Peter either losing his spider sense, like in Amazing Spider-Man issue 654, when he set off that bioelectric magnetic pulse to stop Spider Slayer and his Slayer swarm, only for it to take out his spider sense too. Or in the early days when Venom would catch Peter off guard, since the symbiote knew how to get around it. And it's like here, though we're not given the exact reason or explanation to how Godzilla's doing this, we're quickly seeing for this Peter, much like the one of the main Marvel universe, when he's initially thrown into a situation where he's not able to use his spider sense. It's a problem, and it's not like he has the better part of a year to learn the way of the spider either. But aside from Peter, it doesn't just stop there, because the next thing we see is Ant-Man and the Wasp take a crack at it. And they do this by using Spider-Man and Daredevil as a distraction before hitting Godzilla with Pym particles, only for Godzilla to just shake it off, which again is wild. And when Godzilla puts his foot down, this is where things escalate even further, with him crushing the bar with no name. Because this is the spot where all the villains do their day drinking. It's supposed to be a safe haven for them. And when it's destroyed, they're completely caught off guard. And though it's not only villains who come here, it usually is for the most part. But this hit leaves some of these guys banged up really bad. Like for example, at one point we see Electro trying to bring Vulture back by using his hands as a defibrillator. He's giving him CPR, and I mean it works, but you can tell still that Vulture's not happy about it. But at the same time, it's funny how this has Rhino so pissed, to the point where he leads the charge for all of these villains to climb out of the wreckage and get back at Godzilla, with him saying, "Avengers of the Bar with No Name, assemble." And all of these guys just go for Godzilla at the same time. You got Sandman, Hydro Man, Venom, they're out here. And Jerry Duggan gives it the perfect description, with it being described as Godzilla smacking a hornet's nest, because that's quite literally how this looks. But also when Venom goes after Godzilla, there's a moment here where the symbiote chooses the King of Monsters over Eddie, because in the middle of their attack it starts to leave Eddie, like literally high and dry, in an attempt to bond with Godzilla, only for Spider-Man to stop this from happening at the last second. And he's like, the last thing we need is for this thing to get venomized. And now following this, when we go back to Doctor Strange over at the Sanctum Sanctorum, we find that he's still dealing with that interdimensional parasite from issue 1. But now that his help has finally arrived, he tells them to tent the Sanctum for a week, and whatever they do, don't go inside. Cause from the time Godzilla had arrived all the way up to now, Doctor Strange had been occupied, dealing with that interdimensional parasite and trying to make his way out to the fight, which now has become this huge team up between the heroes and the villains. And it's in moments like this where if you look carefully, you'll find a couple funny things, especially if your focus is on Doc Ock or Electro. But even with everyone coming together here, heroes and villains alike, to attack Godzilla, this creates a scenario where they're all just lined up to be blasted by its atomic breath. And we're told here Godzilla's jaw opened and the furnace of his chest erupted. As the kaiju sucked air into its carnivorous lungs, the villains reflected on the many terrible life choices that had delivered them to this awful moment. Regrets mounted and sphincters clenched. But then a booming voice delivered them from certain death. Cause the next thing these guys hear is Doctor Strange summoning the Crimson Bands of Cyttorak, with Strange going on to say, "Godzilla, King of the Monsters, I humbly beseech you to leave the world of man and return home, or you will find that the Sorcerer Supreme is as powerful a foe as you have ever faced." And at this point, Strange has the King of Monsters all wrapped up in the Crimson Bands, only for Godzilla to tear through them like wet toilet paper. And now listen, when I saw this, I was like, okay, what are we doing? Because I mean, this isn't the first time we've seen the Crimson Bands of Cyttorak broken. Magic has cut through them with the Soul Sword, the Hulk has broken them with raw strength before, so we've seen it happen. But at no point in time is this ever considered to be a small feat. And that's why when Strange sees this, it lets him know that Godzilla's become even more powerful, so now they're gonna have to step their solutions up. But also when everyone from the Bar with No Name sees Godzilla do this, they all take off. And Rhino's even like, "You suck, Strange," as he's running away. And I don't even know how to describe this without sounding crazy. But right now, with them realizing that so many of their powers in either science or magic are just useless against Godzilla, for a moment this takes us to a quick exchange between Peter and Doctor Strange, with Strange realizing that none of their science or magic is working against the creature individually. And Peter even mentions here what a lot of the others are thinking, as far as why Doctor Strange can't just wiggle his fingers, say some mumbo jumbo, and win this fight. And it's not like Strange gives Peter the whole speech about magic coming at a cost. Instead, it's one of those things where it's like, we know. In a story like this, we're not going to get a moment where Doctor Strange just throws up a few gang signs, and he's like, "By the set of the Vishanti," and it turns Godzilla into a puppy, and that's like the grand happy ending. Because for one, that would be terrible writing, but secondly, nerfing Doctor Strange from how powerful he used to be, it encourages writers to lean into the idea of Doctor Strange approaching a problem like a doctor, where at first we see him diagnose, second, identify the issue, and then third, either do his surgical sorcerer thing or assemble some sort of cure. And that's quite literally what happens here, because after Strange points out that neither their magic or science are working on Godzilla, next he's like, "Where's the Hulk?" And after that he's asking what happened to Thor. Where in Thor's case, it was kind of a funny situation last issue, but right here we see Peter pointing off to the distance where he sees something shooting down from the sky. And on the topic of where's Thor, this is where Peter tells Strange, "I think he found Falkor." And I'm gonna tell you right now, if I could play the theme song to the never-ending story right here, I would. Because after Peter says this, we see Thor riding in on the back of Fin Fang Foom. And it's like, man, Peter's reference couldn't be more spot on. But now with Thor bringing Fin Fang Foom to the fight, Thor's more or less struck a bargain here, where it's like, okay, if Foom helps him win, then he'll be rewarded handsomely. So they go into this hitting hard, only for Godzilla to hit right back, which isn't the worst thing we've seen in the Godzilla vs. Foom fight. But in this fight, when Foom uses his acid breath on Godzilla, Foom gets really cocky, because he looks to Thor like it's time to collect his reward, all the while not noticing that he's about to catch a counter from Godzilla, which only makes it clearer that these guys just don't have the firepower to stand up to the King of Monsters. And now this just has Daredevil like, we need some space between us and that thing. And Spider-Man agrees, because he's like, I could use some emotional distance too. And it's right here where Strange combines what they have available at the moment, because he's just like, agreed, perhaps we can use brute force and magic, as he creates this huge portal behind Godzilla that leads to the astral plane, as Daredevil tells everyone to hit Godzilla as hard as they can and knock him back into it, which works well enough to send Godzilla flying through. And I gotta say, there's a moment here when this happens where Strange is like, enjoy your trip to the astral plane, Godzilla. Perhaps you can escape one day if you learn spellcraft. And right there, I'm just like, bro, don't say that. Don't jinx your whole universe, as if the potential of sending Godzilla to the astral plane wasn't bad enough. And Strange is aware of this because as soon as he closes the portal, as soon as he shuts the door, even after Godzilla is sent away to the astral plane, they can feel him shaking their reality. But even with Strange doing this, he knew this wasn't a full stop solution. It was just to buy them some time. And right after the shakeup, Strange is just like, I was afraid of that. Now this Godzilla is out of our house, but in the walls of our universe. And it's like now Rhino's just doubling down on what he said earlier, because he's like, you really suck at this, Dr. Strange. But Strange goes on to say here, we need to find our strongest hero, Spider-Man, Banner, and the rest. The battle is just beginning. Godzilla is going to punch out the innards of our reality soon, and we must be ready. So yeah, hopefully we get a moment where someone's like, he's in the walls, because the setup for us getting that line is just perfect. But also on the topic of perfect setups, after this, when we head over to the negative zone, we're shown the device that the Fantastic Four of 2029 had sent out. And we're told here, the 2029 launch from the Fantastic Four wasn't just an incursion into the negative zone, it was also a trip back through time to the present. The Fantastic Four's faithful robot companion has been programmed to hone in on its past self located in the Baxter building. And that's where we see Herbie just break out of that box and make its way home, which is likely already here in the negative zone with Reed, Sue, and Ben, since they had traveled here inadvertently with portions of the Baxter building, which hopefully included present day Herbie. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like and let me know in the comments what you're hoping to see happen now that Godzilla's been sent to the astral plane, because it would be wild to see Godzilla make a turn where instead of going back to their reality, we instead see Godzilla show up in Nightmare's realm, though I mean, I doubt that would happen, but it's fun to play with the idea. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.